Kosta Ligris, good morning. CEO and co-founder of Stavvy, and we are here in the spectacular offices in downtown Boston, so congratulations on that. When did you first sort of realize, hey, this is something that is possible and I can be a leader nationally and internationally on it?
I've been thinking about it for quite some time. And we, as you know, had built tools to try to digitize aspects of even the process internally at the law firm, and even like getting client information. We'd built a secure portal for that. And so it's been something that just sort of been on the sideline and like in the back of my mind for some time in terms of, I've got a lot of subject matter expertise here. Like I understand how the process works, but it wasn't really until I decided that I just needed to step away from the process a little bit, because sometimes you're in it. And it's no different than when you're writing something and then you're kind of stuck and you take a pause and you put it away and then you come back with a fresh set of eyes. And so I went to business school.
And when was that again, Kosta?
So I applied in 2015, got in, started in the fall of 2016. So I was at the executive MBA program at MIT, which is similar to like the Sloan Fellows program that they have there over a 20-month period. And so during that period, I stepped away from some of the operational things at the title company and the firm, and minimize my client load and sort of what I was covering. And it was there that I got to have this sort of, interdisciplinary approach to innovation and see how others in other industries had tackled, transformation, whether it be digital or whether it be other things that require innovation for them to be able to either thrive or succeed in their respective spaces, different opinions, different industries, right? I'm not going to do it justice, but like Anthony Bourdain has I'm a huge fan, and had this really cool quote, and he talks a lot about, he starts with like, have the cream sauce tonight, like go to an empty bar and have a pint at 4:00.
Yep.
Sit with somebody that doesn't have the same thoughts or opinions as you and like listen to them. And so that resonates, right? That we get really sucked into the real estate industry and we become really big proponents of it's always been done that way. How amazing. We're here in Admiral Hopper room, right?
You mentioned that as we were getting started. Do you want to tell the audience a bit about that? Because that is a wonderful quote.
Yeah, so our breakout rooms and conference rooms are named after famous innovators. Our largest conference room that you and I are in today is named after Admiral Grace Hopper. She's famously known as creating the term bug in computer software. And she was famously quoted as saying that just people are allergic to change. And they really like to go back to like things have always been done this way. And that's one of the reasons she had in her office a clock that went counterclockwise, right? So it's about thinking different, to steal from Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And I think that as an industry, we've tried to think different in some ways, but in other ways we've really been grounded in our ways.
And to the extent that, we're in this industry that is really old-fashioned, right? Or you were in the industry that's really old-fashioned. And now you have this, I think arguably one of the largest innovation hubs in the world, in the country. How has that accelerated the growth here at Stavvy to be in Boston?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of power around innovation ecosystems, right? We have seen Silicon Valley transform industries as a result of just that ecosystem and the support that it has. Boston is just an amazing ecosystem. The innovation ecosystems require like a bunch of stakeholders, right? You need entrepreneurs, you need risk capital or venture capital, access to that. You need a government that supports innovation. You need academic research centers like Harvard and MIT and BU and Northeastern. We have just some remarkable schools in the 617 area code if you just step back, and even going a little bit broader than that in Massachusetts. And so it's fertile ground to have people that are daring and brave enough to think about what the future can look like and how we can change a process, no matter how archaic it's been.
And talk a bit about Kosta, your co-founder and business partner, Josh Feinblum. You guys you've said in the past, bonded over undeniable truth that closing on a mortgage is way too hard, right? Tell us about how you both met, how you sort of, thought about this or had this vision to create where we are
Yeah,
today?
Josh and I met at MIT, and it's kind of interesting. A lot of people figure like, well, we knew each other in class, but we weren't super close.
Yeah.
It wasn't until he actually bought his most recent home that he went through the process. He used my former firm, and through no fault of theirs, I got to experience how painful the process is, how much paperwork is involved, how sharing of personal information through one portal and one secure email and uploading things in different places is just so broken and fragmented. And given his background in security and fraud and legal operations and being a technologist since he was a kid, he really saw, I think, the opportunity. And it's hard for an entrepreneur that's a subject matter expert to really dive into starting something like this without having a technical, either co-founder or senior technical person part of the leadership team.
Now, and tell us about those early days, because I'm fascinated by it. I mean, I know I can remember it, just sort of out of the corner of my eye, seeing things blossom. But how would you describe it to people now that we're here? How would you describe those early days of Stavvy?
So they were. It was an interesting period of a tremendous amount of passion and vision, but at the same time, confusion.
Yep.
Right? Like where do you start? It's like no different than when you walk in and you dump out 1,000 puzzle pieces. Like where do you begin?
I always start in the corners. That's
okay.
my little secret.
So is there a particular corner? I mean,
I don't have a particular corner.
Yeah. I mean, I usually start in the corners too. Like
okay,
I identify every 90-degree angle I can. But yeah, and then you quickly realize that, you need a bunch of little lines on the bottom edge of the puzzle piece.
Yep.
But it was an interesting period. We talked to a lot of people in the industry that validated a lot of the hypotheses we had.
Yep.
But we also realized that this is a tough industry to break into, in the sense that when you're selling to financial institutions, we sometimes talk about how we're selling to highly regulated companies or financial institutions that are doing one of the most regulated transactions, right? So there's a lot of things that you need to worry about, and so it's overwhelming. But just like everything else, what's the old expression? How do you eat a whale?
Yep.
One bite at a time.
Yeah. So switching a bit just to the overall market, June saw record low home price appreciation and the largest single month increase of for sale inventory in 12 years, resulting in a cool down in the housing market. And the housing market would likely slow further in the coming months if mortgage rates remain high. What are your thoughts on the overall market? You don't sound like a guy that really particularly cares what's going on in the marketplace overall. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. Did
somebody flag to you that I wanted to really be an economist?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So, I was talking to somebody who said to me, "You're an awfully calm CEO considering everything going on in the world." And like the insurance commercial says, you know a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
And so no to economic expansion or retraction periods look exactly the same. But when you've lived through like the dot-com crisis and the housing crisis, and I built companies through that, you start to build a muscle to develop a little bit of intuition. So you're asking a specific question. So what do I think? I think that we've already seen cooling in certain markets. It's very hard to look at real estate in a binary way. Like it's hot or cold, because not all markets cool at the same temperature or the same rate, and they don't heat up at the same rate. And so I think that if you're putting the minimum down payment down, and you were really trying to figure out how to make this work from a debt to income ratio, the increase that we've seen in mortgage rates has removed those buyers from the market. We have other markets that have just, the demand is so high and rent prices are so high that despite what has happened with mortgage rates, there's still ample supply and demand. Demand, not supply. We have a supply issue. So having said all that, I think, do I think we're going to see a housing crisis the likes of what we saw before? No. And the data points that I look at are how much money have people saved, how much equity they have in their home, what is the percentage of homeowners that have mortgages that have high FICOs and low other types of of debt, and those are all promising signals that we're not going to see some major change in the market. Having said all that, what we saw with mortgage rates and how quickly they went up in the period that happened was frightening.
Yeah.
It's a signal that there is a real threat of this stagflation, and going into that type of a period could be dangerous to the housing market and for consumer lending in general. We're seeing the shift of spending go from goods to services, which I think is normal given the fact that we've been raising rates. So I'm cautiously optimistic that the housing market is not going to have some big catastrophe or catastrophic event. Having said that, there are markets that will have double-digit percentage corrections in prices, because just like what we saw in the stock market, there are things that are overvalued.
Yep. Now tell me, Kosta, as we talk about the market overall and the impact on Stavvy and your organization and sort of digital transformation overall, I mean, you really, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're striving for volume of transactions. You want volume of transactions.
We do, I mean, absolutely. Volume is a critical component, but it's not the only data point that I'm passionate about, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we're really passionate about is the fact that we have a huge impact on ESG, and not just the E, which is the easy part for people to sort of rationalize, like, oh yeah, if you go digital, there's no paper.
Yep.
But the S part of it, right? That people don't have to go and find a notary in their local community sometimes to notarize a document that may have information that they don't want their neighbor to know. And so that's a critical component. The other piece of this is volume is important, but so is liquidity, right? And so creating more liquidity in the capital markets with e-notes and loans that are sold faster because they're digital assets as opposed to paper creates an opportunity now for lenders to look at the margin associated with what they're originating the loan, what it costs to originate a loan, and what they can make. And it brings a new competitive lens to what mortgages can look like and consumer lending can look like.
How quickly till the digital closing, start to finish, till that's 80-90% of mortgage transactions? Yeah,
so it's a great question. I really wish I knew the answer to it. I can tell you this. I think
the Kosta Ligris crystal ball.
The Kosta Ligris crystal ball is that the first 15 to 20% is going to be the hardest.
Yeah.
We will hit a tipping point.
Yep.
And right now, as powerful as remote online notarization has been in terms of looking at what that creates from an accessibility perspective and a convenience perspective, I think that e-notes and looking at, even if somebody comes into your office and signs digitally, signs in person and meets with you and does the notary aspect in a state like Massachusetts that doesn't yet have Ron in wet ink, lenders can still sell a loan with just the digital note, right? And so that creates liquidity in the markets and velocity in the transaction on the back end that we haven't seen before. And I think the horse has left the barn. The larger non-bank lenders are seeing that. The stakeholders in the capital markets, whether it's custodians or warehouse lenders and aggregators and servicers, they're all very mindful that this can drive costs down and create a better audit trail and create a better customer experience.
So that's really a win all around for the lenders and for Stavvy and for all the stakeholders.
And for consumers.
Yeah.
And for consumers.
Most importantly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You've been incredibly active in the community, volunteer work over the years. Do you want to talk a bit about some of your volunteer experience and maybe overall for the company here at Stavvy, that's some points that are important to you?
Yeah, so anyone that knows me knows that culture is really important, and building an environment where people, it's not just a psychologically safe environment to work in, but something that you're proud of is important. As a result of that, I think when you're an employer and in a leadership role and function, you also have a responsibility to your communities. And that can be a pretty wide open aperture in terms of what you define as communities. I know that you've been a supporter and have come along the journey, but I've raised money in the past for St. Jude Children's Hospital, something I'm really passionate about, because no kid should die and not have a chance at life, right? And so that's something I've that's always resonated with me. I've been pretty active with the Beth Israel Leahy Medical System here in the greater Boston area, a system that I think does incredible work for the communities that it serves. Outside of just Boston, having expanded that network. And believe in giving back also to our academic institutions. I'm very involved with, as you mentioned, Suffolk University, my alma mater for law school, sit on the dean's cabinet at the law school, and I'm a university trustee that I'm really proud of being able to give, pay forward a little bit and give my time and to a school that has created a lot of opportunity for so many in this community, including myself. So.
That's a great answer. And also, you guys talk about corporate culture. You recently took a full company-wide work week off to recharge, and you've also done recharge days in the past as well. I think I caught you on one of the last times we chatted.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What's the impact been across the company?
Yeah, I actually think when I interviewed you, it was on our recharge day.
It was. So you weren't recharging.
So we have now officially gone on record as me violating the protocol. But yeah. It's really important because I think, especially now that people have a more hybrid or flexible, structure with their work-life balance. People are working a lot from home, or they're coming in a few days a week, taking a couple days and working from home. Work doesn't end, and I think especially for people that are in a startup like ours, we're constantly, trying to make customers happy, push out new product, find ways to create new energy in some of the messaging that we do. There's always something that comes up, and it gets really hard to shut it down. And you tell people, hey, you got unlimited paid time off, take time off. And some people are really good about taking a couple days here and there. And others like myself are really bad at it. We just feel like, oh, okay, well, if I'm not in the office, then I'm technically not working. But if I'm not in the office and I'm out with my family and I'm on the phone the whole time, it's really no different, right? And you may physically be present with family and friends, but you may not mentally be there. So forcing everybody to shut it down allows that recalibration. It's really important. And just seeing, in our Slack channel and everyone sharing the things that they did that week to recharge and just, step away. But that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for also our amazing support team that did work and have to, cover customer support calls, because just because we take a recharge week doesn't mean that the world shuts down. So, we create an opportunity for them to then obviously rotate through that and give them time off as well.
Kosta, tell us a bit about, your where did you get who do you look up to in sort of the corporate culture world? Who do you sort of take your guidance from? To have some of these ideas and execute them and implement them.
Yeah. So, I read a lot.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. And so I would say that I don't know that I could really isolate an individual, human being. There's really some remarkable thought leaders in culture and in people. There's some remarkable, CEOs and COOs and people and chief people officers and other roles that have really created a lot of thought leadership and a lot of initiatives that other companies mirror, right? A lot of people have studied the Netflix model and how they treat employees. Others have looked at, how Googlers, or what the Google environment looks like. There's a lot of really interesting companies that have an interesting perspective in how to create a better employee experience, because it's just as important as a better customer experience. So I don't know that I specifically have an individual person I'm like, wow, this person is right 10 out of 10 times.
But it just feels like that's the most important thing right now, that your culture internally,
100%.
The things that you're doing.
Everything else is second to that.
And it's been turned on its head with COVID, post-COVID.
It has. I mean, COVID has forced us to really reimagine and rethink a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, there's no question that it's changed the way that we're going to look at things forever. No different, no different than 9/11 changed the way that we traveled.
Yep.
And the way that we operated our airline industries and our airports and the like. And so, there are moments like this where we have to look at the lessons learned and figure out how we can take those lessons and develop. So culture is super important. It starts from culture because it's our people that build great products. It's our people that sell great products. It's our people that take care of our customers. And so as a result of that, investing in our people is something that we have done from day one.
Your talent acquisition has been remarkable in the industry, just to see and hear of the names that have come aboard over the last several months. So it's a huge credit to you and the leadership team at Stavvy.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think it's a credit really to the community and the culture. It's easy for me to go and have a conversation with somebody when I have so many remarkable data points of, a Culture Amp survey that shows just really tremendous engagement, a tremendous sense of belonging, and then to be able to have conversations with people that know others that have come here, right?
Yeah. At this point, you're there, right?
Yeah.
There's enough people who've been here and they can tell you what's going on inside.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears a bit, Kosta, a couple longer form questions here. And this is a tough one probably to answer, but what skills or habits would you credit for your success?
I'm a persistent person. I really do believe that persistence moves resistance. And so I think that's super important. I do make sure to get my sleep in. That's really important for me, is to be able to function. But I think persistence is important, vision is important, and consistency in how you show up, when you show up. When people know what to expect from you, it helps them do their job better. And so just being a consistent persister.
I like that. Did we coin that? Consistent
we just
persister.
Term? There we go.
That's going to be the title of the episode.
There you go.
Kosta Ligris, the consistent persister. What's the biggest decision or change that you or your team have made in the last year?
So I don't know if it's a change, but certainly with respect to decision-wise, we get an overwhelming, I don't even know the data point, it's thousands of emails from independent notaries looking to have access to the platform. We have made an intentional decision to power the current industry. And what I mean by that is provide our software to title and settlement agents in the real estate space, to lenders in the real estate space, to financial institutions and the like, but not to open up the floodgates and provide notaries or provide services, and really be a technology company that is empowering and enabling the current stakeholders. I suspect that if we had gone the direction of just allowing independent notaries to create account and manage their own transactions, we would have done more volume in terms of numbers of transactions in the last year. But the intentional decision to be true to the industry and know that I can look at you and say to you, Jack, I'm here not to displace you, but to give you the technology to go digital, empower you to be able to do more transactions faster, cover more territory than you've traditionally covered, is something that we're proud of a tough decision that was made to really power the industry.
It makes sense when you're describing that answer, because those people are the ones who are boots on the ground with folks, signing with them, and they're recognizing that this is a tidal wave coming their way, and you're sort of going around it to navigate and also grab the stakeholders and accelerate our side of the business, I guess. This is a
personal transaction.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you represent a client, when you're doing a transaction for a client, this is their home, right? They're trusting you.
Yep.
They're asking you questions. They're relying on you. They're leaning on you. When something goes wrong, it's you, their real estate professional, their banker, their mortgage banker, that they're turning to. And so that is what I grew up in the industry calling like that sphere of influence,
yep.
right? Where you guys support each other, and you know that the people that refer you know that they can get you, they can get good advice from you, that you're going to take care of their clients. It's a relationship business and it's local, and that's really hard to take and completely turn on its head and say, well, here's a notary that may have a ton of experience notarizing documents and explaining documents to you, but this is the first time you're meeting him is at the tail end of your transaction.
Yeah.
It just felt unnatural to us.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. And credit to you guys in Stavvy for recognizing that. Some fun questions just to wrap up here, coming up on time. So I might skip the first one because I love the second one so much better. Biggest pet peeve, and I want to go personal. Personal pet peeve. What bothers you in your personal life?
People know that like I go crazy over certain things. Like things have to be in order. And my brother has the same problem. Like if somebody comes and moves like my keyboard out of place, like I go bananas.
Yeah.
I also go nuts at how people behave on airplanes and airports. Like they're board by group people. Like it's not that hard, right? Or when the plane lands, everyone jumps up.
Yep.
Like if you're in row 24, you're not getting off faster than the guy in row 8.
You got 10 minutes
Relax.
left. Yep.
Turn your phone on.
You should start chronicling that stuff because you travel so often too.
I do. I travel so much and I see like the craziest stuff.
Yeah.
So those things drive me absolutely hysterically crazy.
Yep.
But everything like loose can, like a jar or something, or if I go in the kitchen, I see like an espresso pod that's either not been disposed of properly or it's not. It's somebody looked at it and like, I don't want this flavor, and they didn't put it back. They just left it there on the counter. It drives me nuts. Like there's a good thing there's no security cameras in the kitchen.
This whole podcast could have been pet peeves with Kosta. How about professionally, work-wise? What bothers you?
Inconsistency.
That was a quick answer and a great answer. Favorite movie or top 3 favorite movies?
Good Will Hunting is one of them.
Okay.
I think they were brilliant in that. And Robin Williams is just an amazing talent.
Is that number 1 for you across the board if you had one movie to watch?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. It's up there. It's up in the top 3.
All right.
Rainmaker?
Yep.
Wasn't that the Matt Damon and...
Yes, the Rainmaker.
Yeah, that's
when
where
he was a lawyer.
Danny DeVito introduces himself as a para lawyer because he hasn't passed the bar. It's like my favorite line.
I didn't know that was a thing either.
Yeah, Michael Clayton.
Yeah,
The Fixer.
So you like some lawyer movies?
Yeah, I like drama.
Yep.
A little legal drama.
How about, I know you travel to Greece often, and Greece is always people's answer to this, but what is your favorite place you've been on vacation? Can I exclude Greece? It's my show, so I'm going to exclude Greece.
You can do whatever you want.
I'm going to exclude Greece.
You should exclude Greece. Italy.
Okay.
Close to Greece.
Yeah. And I think you asked me this question. I'll ask you as well. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your days, what would it be?
I think it's pizza for me.
Pizza.
It's a big crouton.
Yep. Same question you asked me. Most often used emoji. I love that question.
We ask that question a lot. I use the what people say are the praying hands.
Yep.
The thank yous. I think equally as much as the thumbs up.
Yep. Those two.
And the thumbs up is either like, okay, like I'm good with this, or I'm being passive aggressive.
Yep. And now, do you like people's messages?
And people don't know
iMessage?
what I mean by that.
Do you like people's messages on iMessage too?
Yes, I do. I do the tapbacks. That's what they're called, right?
Tapbacks.
Yes.
Those are conversation killers too.
Those have to, by the way, like they have to expand. I need more options there.
I'm sure it's coming. Talk to you. You're more connected to that.
At apple.com.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much, Kosta, for joining us for the showcase. Again, I know this was something that's been on the books for a long time, so I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for your friendship and your support, and it's always great to catch up with you.
You got it. Thank you again, Kosta.
Thank you for listening to the Touchstone Showcase.